All right, let's just get straight into it. Today we are unpacking something absolutely phenomenal. We're going to deconstruct the whole concept of building an armored mind. Now, most people think mental toughness is just this innate gift, right? Like it's something you're either born with or you aren't. But the source material we're exploring today completely shatters that myth. It shows us that an unbreakable will is actually an algorithm, one that is forged in the intense, literal fires of extreme adversity. We are looking at the origin story of David Goggins, and we're going to distill the brutal, raw realities of his early life to understand exactly how the human mind can be completely unshackled.
Okay, let's dive into this. The entire foundation of this source material is actually built on a single dedication. Read it with me. To the unrelenting voice in my head that will never allow me to stop. That right there, that's the baseline. It sets the exact tone for everything we're about to cover. Because to face life's ultimate hurdles, you have to cultivate an internal drive that honestly borders on the obsessive. It is not about motivation. Motivation is super fleeting. It's about cultivating that unrelenting voice. And that actually brings up a question I want to ask you directly, right now. Do you know who you really are and what you're capable of? I mean, you probably think you do, but the text argues that denial is our ultimate comfort zone. Millions of people roam the streets completely unaware of their true potential. They make comfortable, self-limiting choices that keep them living at about 40% of their true capability. 40%. Just take a second to think about that. To break out of that 40%, we've got to treat this whole explainer as a literal mission. The author literally frames this as a military warning order: time zone, 24/7. Task organization, solo mission. The main objective here is to permanently ditch the victim's mentality and build an absolutely unbreakable foundation. But honestly, the most crucial part of this order is point number 4. This is the origin story of a hero. The hero is you. The steps we're outlining today aren't just a biography. They are a blueprint for your own personal metamorphosis. Hell on Paradise Road, glossy versus gritty. Right, so to really understand this blueprint, we first have to understand the fire that forged it. We have to travel back to 1981 to a place called Williamsville in Buffalo, New York. On the surface, this looks like the absolute peak of the American dream, but as you'll see, there is a sharp, terrifying contrast between this picture-perfect suburban facade and the dark reality lurking just beneath it. And this brilliantly illustrates what I mean. The illusion of Williamsville was the perfect American dream, right? 1981 Corvettes in the driveway, tailored suits, friendly 7 a.m. waves to the neighbors. But the reality for the Goggins family was entirely different. Their life wasn't defined by that daytime suburbia. It was defined by the nighttime hood at a roller disco called Skateland. The glossy aesthetic completely masked a grueling, violent, and sleepless existence orchestrated by a highly abusive father. Let's look a little closer at the reality of this hidden nightmare. David and his brother were subjected to unpaid, forced child labor. We're talking about a 6-year-old working the skate counter until 10 p.m. and then scrubbing blood and bacteria off the rink floors until midnight. His mother was stripped of all financial independence, leaving them completely trapped. And the psychological terror? It was constant. At just 6 years old, David was sleeping on a sofa in the Skateland office, a sofa under which his father kept a loaded gun. The beatings with the leather belt were so severe that he literally had to wear long clothes on the playground just to hide the welts. The toll of toxic stress. Look, you simply cannot endure that level of violence and sleep deprivation without it leaving a massive mark. And it's here that our narrative really shifts, from a story of abuse into a clinical understanding of biological fallout. We need to look at what this kind of extreme childhood trauma actually does to the human brain. Now, what's really interesting about this is the actual clinical definition of toxic stress. When stress spikes occur frequently enough, like they do when you're living with a highly abusive, unpredictable parent, you can literally draw a straight line right across those peaks, and that becomes your new baseline. The brain gets locked into a permanent fight-or-flight mode. Yes, it's a survival mechanism, but it causes actual physical, biological damage to a child's brain development. And the real-world consequences of this, they go way, way beyond just feeling sad. Toxic stress severely stunted David's language development. It created these massive memory limiters, meaning he couldn't retain what he was learning in school. It brought on crippling social anxiety, physical symptoms like uncontrollable stuttering, and his hair even started falling out. Statistically speaking, this environment wires a child's brain for failure, drastically increasing the risk for depression and putting them squarely in the prime demographic for juvenile arrest. He was, by all accounts, the ultimate at-risk youth. So the crucial point here is how the outside world reacts to a brain that's been wired by trauma.
When David moved to Indiana, his first teacher was Sister Catherine. She was an educator who used patience, empathy, and a lot of repetition to help him learn to read. But the very next year, he got Miss D, who focused purely on productivity. When David couldn't keep up, she threatened to label him a special student, which back then was a devastating stigma. Terrified of being cast out, this desperate, stressed-out kid found a dangerous coping mechanism. He started chronically cheating just to survive the school system. The deepening void. Because, as it turns out, escaping the physical devil in Buffalo wasn't the end of the story. In fact, it was just the beginning. A whole new wave of compounding traumas was waiting for the family in Indiana. As the source material shows us, when you don't process trauma, it just waits for you. And for David, the void was about to get a whole lot deeper. Let's move to this timeline and see exactly how this builds. Escaping in 1981 was just step one. The traumas began compounding relentlessly. By 1989, just as things were finally looking up with a really supportive new father figure named Wilmeth, he was brutally murdered, shot 5 times in his own garage. Months later, in 1990, David witnessed a horrific, fatal school bus accident involving a 6-year-old boy. And then, in 1992, he faced a racist gunman on a country road. These overwhelming tragedies struck in rapid succession, entirely reawakening his severe PTSD. And the environment itself was deeply hostile. This wasn't just some abstract feeling of not fitting in. Take a look at this. These are members of the Ku Klux Klan saluting a burning cross in Center Point, Indiana in 1995. Our source material notes that this active, systemic hate was happening literally just 15 minutes down the road from where David lived. This was the terrifying, undeniable reality of his daily environment. Which really brings us to the immense psychological weight of being the only. David was navigating deep, systemic prejudice every single day. He'd find racist death threats literally drawn right into his school workbooks. Racial slurs were spray-painted onto his car doors. And when he went to the school administration for help, he found no genuine support, just a principal who actually pointed out that the racists had misspelled the slur. It was profound isolation. So, to survive, he adopted this extreme, brash, hip-hop-inspired persona as a literal defense mechanism, just to mask his pain and push people away. Finding the spark. You know, if you were watching this life unfold, you probably think it was destined for total disaster. But the text outlines a major turning point here. Even in the deepest, most hopeless haze, a spark can cut through. For David, that spark came in the form of a truly extraordinary story of human resilience. That spark came in the form of the Scott Gearin miracle. Gearin was an Air Force pararescue man who suffered a mid-air parachute collision at 13,000 feet. He free fell and hit the ground at 100 miles per hour. The man literally died twice on the operating table, and yet, defying absolutely every medical odd, he made a full recovery and was back on the job in 18 months. Hearing this astonishing survival story planted a crucial seed in David's mind. It actually is possible to transcend absolutely anything that doesn't kill you. Challenge your bad hand. This is where we turn the mirror directly onto you. We've talked a lot about toxic stress, trauma, and terrible systemic odds, but the biological mechanism of self-limiting choices, that 40% rule we talked about earlier, that is universal. We all have a bad hand in some form or another, and we all use it as an excuse to stay comfortable. The source material lays down a really powerful first challenge for you right here. What was your bad hand? What kind of adversity did you contend with growing up? Maybe you were bullied, maybe you were insecure, or hey, maybe your limiting factor is that you grew up so comfortable and supported that you never actually pushed yourself. What are the long odds you are up against right now? You have to confront these deeply held excuses. So, how do we build this mental armor? The text gives us some precise tactical steps to take today. Step 1, unearth your own bad cards and your limiting factors. Step 2, write them out in minute detail in a journal. Don't be bland about it. Step 3, give your pain shape so you can actually absorb its power. And step 4, share it publicly or accept it fully privately so you can flip it into fuel. Acknowledging the raw, unfiltered truth of your limitations is literally the only way to forge an armored mind. So here's the ultimate question I'll leave you with today. Will you let your bad hand limit you, or will it become the fuel for your metamorphosis? Look, from the very moment you take your first breath, you are eligible to find your greatness. It's time to stop letting your history dictate your future. Equip yourself for the battle ahead, put in the work, and become the one warrior. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive today. Now get out there and get to work.